I'm Jack Kennedy, and we're here to bring you the latest in MMA.
Hey everybody, my name's Hunter Boss, and what the boss says goes.
What is up everyone, my name is Keelan McNamara, and you already know what time it is.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the MMA Island Podcast. I am Jack Kennedy alongside Keelan McNamara and Hunter Boss. And today, let's go ahead and get started with the news. And this is probably a really cool call out. Jiri Prochazka, the now sitting light heavyweight champion, called out Glover Teixeira. That's the fight that they want to make next. That's the fight that Juri's gunning for, a better performance because he didn't like his performance beforehand. Hunter, what do you think about this call out?
I think it's a good call out. I like it. I think it's all of what he said on Twitter was true. Jan Blachowicz may not have agreed with it, obviously. He left a response, but even Jiri responded to Jan saying, hey, it's nothing personal, man. Just want to get this win back and make it emphatic, I like it. And I like how the way Jiri responds to everything. He doesn't really, just wait, and he doesn't really just hold up any divisions. He gives you an answer almost straight away. And even when Jan responded to his tweet and then Jiri responded back to his tweet, you don't see champions even responding back to people nowadays. So I just think that Jiri had a great response, and I like how he responds quickly and in time, so we get up to date on our MMA news. So thank you, Jiri.
Yep, succinct and to the point from Mr. Boss. It's what we've come to know, love, and expect. I like it, Hunter. Now, I'm on the same page as Hunter. I'm a big fan of this call-out from Jiri Prochazka. That fight will probably end up being the fight of the year by year's end. I certainly hope it will.
Yeah.
And he's absolutely right. How often do we see champions actively wanting to perform better than compared to their previous fights? I'm not looking at you, Israel Adesanya. Don't worry about that. But the point remains, Jiri Prochazka is one of the very few people in the UFC who calls out someone who they've just beaten for the title because they're not happy with their performance. That speaks to mindset for me. And it tells me that Jiri Prochazka is extremely determined to be the best, because the best are perfectionists. The best are not happy with simply winning the title. Jiri's obviously unhappy with the fact that, he was vulnerable at times against Glover Teixeira. Even though Glover's a brilliant fighter in his own right, there's no shame in being vulnerable to Glover Teixeira. But the fact that he wants to rerun that, reload that, and do it again, I have nothing but respect for that. And the fact that he responded straight away to Jan Blachowicz, it tells you how class the guy is. Jiri will give Jan his fight. There is no worry about that. And let's be honest, Jan's not going to come out and say, oh, you're scared to fight me, because Jiri will literally fight everybody. He literally has fought everybody. So my point is to bring it back to Mr. Kennedy himself. I like where Jiri's going with this. I respect it. It's very uncommon, but I'm here for it. I like it a lot.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. This is why we love Jiri Prochazka, right? He's not the typical champion or whatever. By the way, he became champion in 3 UFC fights, which that's a ridiculous accomplishment in its own right. But I do like where his head is at, because, if we're being honest, he was on his way to losing that fight if it wasn't for that submission. If it went to the judges' scorecards, it would have gone Glover. And that 5th round was Glover Teixeira's round for sure. I like it because, one, it's a mutual respect. Honestly, even with whenever Jan's saying it, whenever they're going back, it's a really mutual respect between the top 3 in light heavyweight, which is Juri, Glover, and Jan, because they all realize that, okay, they're all really good. Glover was the champion. Obviously, he's one of the oldest active fighters in the UFC right now and still one of the best. I like what Juri is doing, and the fact that he wants to show that he is the champion. It wasn't a fluke win. He didn't just get a fluke submission. He wants to go out there and dominate and get a first title defense against a guy who they put on one of the best fights I've honestly ever seen. And I don't think I'm overrating that. I really think that was one of the best fights I've ever seen. It was insane. There was not one second where my eyes were not glued to the television watching that. So I am all for a rematch. I think it would be great. Personally, I think I would like to see the Jan versus Juri fight a little bit more, just because I'd love to see what Jan Blachowicz would do. And both those guys, the power of the Polish power versus Jiri Prochazka, and he's got power too. I think that's the fight I really want to see, and I think Jan deserves that fight. But Glover absolutely deserves it as well after the career he's had, and he was the champion. And it makes a lot of sense from Jiri Prochazka's perspective, like to get that win back to prove it's not a fluke. I think it makes a lot of sense. It's a great call out. Again, personally, I think I prefer the Jan matchup just a little bit more, but hey, I'm not complaining. It's a great any one of these guys is a great matchup.
Yeah, no, this is going to be a great fight no matter what. And anyone who says like Yuri's running away or like avoiding the actual fight in Jan, there's no way, because he was losing the fight to Glover. I mean, he's not running from anything. He's he's running into the fire. That's what he's doing. You know, he's not running away from the fire. He's running straight into it because he knew he had trouble with Glover and he wants to get that, like, making it emphatic. I love that. And Jan will always be there. Jan will wait there. You know, I want to see the Battle of Europe as well. You know, I think that it's going to be a great press conference. It's going to be a great headline. It's just going to be a great fight all around. But Jan will be there. He can wait a little bit longer, and because Glover isn't going to be there forever. You know, this is going to be one of Glover's last fights. So I'd say, yeah, give him the title shot. It's going to be a fun fight either way because we all know how good the first one was. So let's get that second one going.
Yeah, absolutely. This is what needs to happen. It just is. I mean, Jiri Prochazka is like a fireman who's just run out of the building in the smoke and wants to go straight back into that building. So anybody claiming that he's running, why would you go back to someone who gave you your toughest ever fight? That's not running away. That is avenging something that he already won, no less. You know, if he'd lost and he wanted that fight again, fair enough, I'd understand that. But to claim he's running away is ridiculous. We all know that's not the case. He's simply trying to get better. As for the fight with Jan Blachowicz, I would love to see. It's not going to happen, but I'd love to see them both by the end of the year so we can kind of start 2023 on a fresh precipice. But those two fights I definitely want to see. I really do. The battle for Europe will commence soon. We just got to bring a bit of South America back into it, and then we're back to the continent. I think that would be Glover's last fight. I do agree with you guys. And I think it would be just as good as the first one. Those are two guys who don't disappoint. They always put on a show every time they fight. I don't need to sell it. We've already seen it. But that fight with Jiri and Jan would be a real spectacle as well. We will get that. Hunter's right. Jan will wait, or he will fight someone in the meantime and knock them out in the first round again. And then we will get the fight that we want to see. So the light heavyweight division is in a good place right now with Jiri as the champion and Jan as the wolf hunting him down.
Yeah, I agree with you. I got a little, this could be something fun too, you know, while Jan Blachowicz is waiting, right? Because he honestly could just wait it out and then fight for the title because he earned it. But Kamaru Usman also wants to go up to 205. I just got a notification from Bleach Report saying that he wants to go get that 205 belt. So do Usman, Jan Blachowicz while we're waiting, maybe, and then we'll see what happens, you know? Anyways, I'll leave that there.
That's up 23 very well. That might not be a bad shout.
Yeah, but hey, we'll see what happens. Anyways, let's go ahead and move on to the best of the best. And we have a very interesting topic today. UFC 189, McGregor Mendez was about now over 7 years ago, which is crazy. But was that the greatest UFC card of all time, Hunter? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it was. Honestly, it had so many great stars on there, so many a great title fight. It started the McGregor era. There's so many great things about this card that you guys could all say, and anyone who sees the card can see it for themselves and go, wow, that was, you know, a fantastic card. It's not just the names of the people on the card that was great. It was just the fights in general on the card too. They lived up to the hype and then some. And it was just a great card. And Chad Mendes, best part was, he wasn't even supposed to be there, right? It wasn't supposed to be him in that scene. Yet he still gave a really tough challenge to Conor McGregor when Conor McGregor was rolling through everyone. So I thought it was a fantastic fight card. The co-main event was even great too. Of course, Robbie Lawler, Rory McDonald, one of the greatest fights of welterweight ever. So yeah, I don't know what other card could beat it. I mean, there's big names on other cards. Like you'll see a lot of those big names in like the early prelims and the prelims of those older cards because they haven't been established yet. But they weren't necessarily the established fighter they were. So I would have to say all things considered, fighters being established, fighters being, still talented enough to compete, definitely UFC 184 is the best.
Yeah. First of all, where has the time gone?
Yeah.
Might I say? I mean, 2015 literally only feels like yesterday. I remember where I was when the card happened. I've said this before to you guys. I was in Boston on holiday, and I remember the fight happening, and the city basically exploded when that card happened. It was absolutely unbelievable. Look, the UFC have had a lot of great cards. That's not any kind of dramatic overstatement. There's been UFC 100 with Frank Mir, Brock Lesnar, Dan Henderson, Michael Bisping, yada, yada, yada. We've had the UFC in Canada with George St. Pierre. We've had the UFC. We've had 217. We've had 205. 205 runs it close. But for me, no card is as great as UFC 189. And there's a lot of reasons for it. Robbie Lawler, Rory McDonald is one of the greatest fights ever. Any organization, any time, any place in history. Lawler McDonald too is just it's like a real life Rocky Balboa fight, but in a cage with 4-ounce gloves. Basically, that's how good of a fight it was. And then the main event launched a period in MMA that we will never see again. That's how special it was. And basically, the best way I can frame this is for those who are pro wrestling fans, you get the rise of certain people and they have their career arc and then they come back on the other side. UFC 189 was the starting point for the biggest star the sport has ever seen, and probably the biggest star the sport will ever have, Conor McGregor. And that fight was his first test against a wrestler, as we remember, the only real wrestling test that he's ever actually passed, might I add. But that fight, which in itself is brilliant, was just iconic. It's one of those times in history where we all remember where we were, we all remember what we were doing, and that was the night that a man carried a nation. That's how important that fight was. For our mostly American audience, it's tough to put it into perspective because MMA and combat sports have always been huge in the States. But for a tiny island country in the miserable Atlantic like Ireland, to have the biggest star on planet Earth have his rise ignited there and then, I can't tell you how important that was for Ireland and for the country. The sport is big now because of Conor McGregor. Sporting-wise, Ireland is on the mainstream map because of Conor McGregor. Whether you agree with what he's become or what he hasn't, you can't argue with what's there. So for me, UFC 189 is the greatest card in UFC history. And it's, even though it had a spectacular brawl of Robbie Lawler and Rory McDonald, the main reason why it's the greatest, it had the beginning of the story arc for the greatest star the sport has ever seen.
It's so hard to argue with that. I think so. For me, whenever I talk about this, like, I originally was going to go with UFC 217, which was GSP Bisping, because I think that card was just awesome. Co-main event, even though we know what happened afterwards. Cody Garbrandt, TJ Dillashaw, that heated rivalry where Cody's winning and then TJ comes back. It was awesome. And then you have Joanna versus Rose Namajunas, the third title fight on there where Rose won. It's Thug Rose. Ridiculous card. I love that card so much. And GSP is like on top and everything. And so honestly, objectively, that might be the best card of all time, if I'm saying just objectively. However, whenever I'm hearing you guys describe UFC 189, it's just like bringing back so many feelings about what it was. It is by far, for me personally, the most meaningful card I've ever watched, and still probably my personal favorite card to this day. So best card overall, I might go UFC 217, but my favorite and most meaningful to me is definitely UFC 189. I remember the first fight on the main card was Thomas Almeida versus Brad Pickett. And that was where Brad Pickett was doing good, and Almeida landed the flying knee. And at that point in time, everybody thought Thomas Almeida was going to be the new thing at UFC at 135, and then Cody Garbrandt knocked him out a few cards later. Jeremy Stevens fought Dennis Bermudez on that card, which was going to be fight of the night. If you guys remember, that fight was ridiculous, and that is such an underrated fight that doesn't get talked about enough, because Dennis Bermudez, Jeremy Stevens were throwing the whole time. It was a bloodbath, and then Jeremy Stevens landed a flying knee of his own and knocked out Dennis Bermudez. Crazy fight. And so we're buzzing off of that. And then who's up next? Rory McDonald, Robbie Lawler, which if you had watched their first fight, you're like, okay, it's going to be good. We love Robbie Lawler, Rory McDonald. It's like the first fight wasn't all that entertaining. It's going to be a competitive fight. The greatest welterweight fight of all time, and arguably the greatest fight in UFC history, was right there. That fight happens, and you forget. I forgot. I'm like watching that, losing my mind, because how is Robbie Lawler not headlining? First off, I'm losing my mind. And then the fight's over, and it's just his split lip and everything, and he spits blood in the fourth round. Just iconic. Again, that UFC fight in its own is iconic. Can't believe that was a co-main event. And then you're sitting there and you're like, oh my gosh, we're not done. You got Conor McGregor, Chad Mendes up next. And at that time, correct me if I'm wrong, I bet, I know I was, and I can speak for Keelan as well, just based off your nationality, biggest Conor McGregor fan. I loved Conor. Really up until, honestly, the Floyd Mayweather thing. And then after that, the antics, I stopped following as much, but I was the biggest Conor McGregor fan. And at that time, just following the rise of him and everything. And it's like the main event, he walks out, one of the coldest, everybody's talking about Israel Adesanya's Undertaker thing, which was great. That was a great walkout. But the Sinead O'Connor live performance walkout, just, I'm literally getting goosebumps thinking about it. It was the coolest thing ever. And it's in Vegas, right? You got Chad Mendes, who's walking out to his live country music band, and like Americans are flipping him off. Like people are like booing Chad Mendes. Like everybody's like whatever. And obviously the fight was ridiculous. Chad Mendes is winning, and then Conor with like the teep kicks and everything. It's just talking to him. He's talking to him, and then boom, left hand lands. Mendes crumbles. Just the I remember you can even tell they broke out new cameras for that event because it was so big, and just him running around with the Irish flag. It was just iconic, like Keelan said, iconic. And I'm literally getting so excited thinking about it. I remember watching it. I remember where I was. We had a bunch of friends over to watch it. It was just so meaningful to me watching that. I could watch that whole card any day of the week, like a movie. Instead of watching the movie, I could watch that card because it's just so good, so impactful. Everything about it. It was truly a special night in UFC history, and arguably one of the most impactful nights in UFC history, because that was the night Conor McGregor shot into the stratosphere. He became the real notorious Conor McGregor after that fight. And again, I know I'm talking about. One of my favorite moments too is whenever Chad Mendes, after he's doing his Octagon interview, and he's like, I wish we had that support at home. And then he realized, oh wait, no, I am at home right now. And that's just the aura of Conor McGregor. I loved it. I loved everything about it. So yes, I agree with you guys. It's just, for me, it's especially personally, I get so many feelings whenever I think about it. Just one of the best cards of all time, and just so memorable and exciting every single time I think about it. If you haven't watched that card, watch it in full. It's electric. You will be excited. It's amazing. Yeah, I agree with you guys.
Yeah, I'll just tack on a little bit onto that before we move on. I mean, I remember the whole build up to that card, the fight week and everything. And I remember I think it was Michael Johnson was interviewed by the UFC on that fight week. And he said as well, man, I wish we had the support that we have here at home. And then you look back and it's the Bellagio, it's Las Vegas. You are at home. Yeah. And, I'm pretty sure 1.50% of my nation's population was in Las Vegas for that weekend. Yeah. Everywhere you looked was just green flags, green T-shirts, people who looked a little bit like me with the hair and everything and the voices and so on, you can't put a price on that kind of thing, to inspire a nation like that, not inspiring a city or a coast or a district, but a country. Nobody does that. I mean, Khabib kind of did it. I understand that with the whole Dagestan Russia representation. but nobody loved it the way the Irish did it. You know, the 205 when the Irish invaded New York again, 189 when the Irish were in the Vegas Strip. You know, everybody said they loved it. You know, the Irish had a blast. They made the atmosphere, really. And to make an American turn on an American playing country music in America, you got to have some pretty serious impact to do that. And Conor McGregor is one of the only people who could. And the last thing I'll say about this before we move on, because I know Hunter's kind of fed up of us crapping on his arguments, probably, you know, or Jack's arguments on Hunter's. The last thing I kind of had a brain fart like Hunter did earlier. The last thing I'll say before we move on is UFC 189 never felt like just a fight card to me. It felt like a specific point in history that you remember where you were at. It's kind of like a Muhammad Ali fight or a Mike Tyson fight. It feels like an historic event that you only can know because you were there. It's not like a UFC 100, for example, where it was a brilliant card, but you can always feel the same even if you're late to the party. UFC 189, you had to be there to feel it and to see it and to understand it. And that's what sets it apart for me.
Yeah, you could literally feel the energy through the TV. I agree with you. It was crazy. Yeah, love it. Well, guys, let's go ahead and transition to the last topic of the day, the discussion of the week. And it's weird because usually we lead off with this, but we wanted to save this for last because it's so exciting. Rafael Fiziev got a phenomenal win over RDA. Who should he fight next? Hunter, what do you think?
This is a tough one because the lightweight division is just such a mess right now, isn't it? But in my opinion, I think Beneil Dariush would be a pretty nice matchup. It's classic striker versus wrestler again. But we've seen Beneil can strike. You know, he has spinning back fist knockouts. He's got really good knockouts all across the board. Great comebacks. He can strike. You know, he's a great striker. Fiziev can obviously strike, as we saw last weekend. And we've seen he's not too bad defending takedowns as well as getting up from those takedowns. So I think it'd be a really good fight. Beneil Dariush has kind of been just like awkward lately. He's kind of like Kevin Lee right now. What do we do with him? But I mean, I think it's a good spot for Beneil. It's for against Fiziev. I think if Michael Chandler and Dustin Poirier don't fight, I think Michael Chandler could be a good shout. But other than that, I will have to go with Beneil Dariush. I think he's a great fighter, and it's about time he steps back into the octagon. We haven't seen him in a while. So, Beneil Dariush.
Yeah, first of all, Hunter's absolutely correct. I agree with him fully. That division is a mess. You know, from 1 to pretty much 11, 10, 11, it's full of killers. And the problem is it's kind of getting hard to work out who to match up with who. The thing is, Dustin Poirier is number 2. Well, technically number 1, because we all know Charles is the champion. Dustin's technically number 1, but he's talking about moving up to welterweight. He looks huge now, so I can't really count him. Michael Chandler's made overtures about making the same move, so I don't know where I stand with him either. And realistically, if we're looking at the rankings, I'm behind Hunter in this 7 against 6, Beneil Dariush against Rafael Fiziev. I think RDA was a really good test for Fiziev, especially jiu-jitsu wise and grappling wise. But there's an argument, I'm not saying I fully agree with it, but there's an argument that Beneil Dariush is a big step up in that, because we all know how dangerous Dariush is on the ground, and his stand-up has improved a lot. And it would actually be quite a big name for Fiziev to take on and potentially beat as well. That would put Fiziev firmly in the top 5 for a potential Gaethje fight, which I would love to see. But I think it's a fight too soon for something like a Gaethje because I still think he's too big. So I actually agree with Hunter on this. I'm going to say Beneil Dariush, a very tough fight, but could be a very beneficial stepping stone.
Yeah, no, we're all on the same page because I think I agree with you. It's weird. Gaethje Fiziev would be ridiculous. Just stand-up wise, it would be so much fun. But I don't know why I don't really want to see that right now. I might be one of the very few people who says that, but I would love to see the Beneil Dariush matchup because I kind of feel bad for Beneil Dariush. He hasn't fought in so long because it's just honestly like what Hunter was saying. It's like, where does he fit in? Like the Kevin Lee situation, right? It's weird. I think Beneil is very talented, but people kind of again, MMA fans, shortest memory in sports, forget about him. And he's just kind of sitting there while the whole lightweight division mess is going on. Now there's finally someone in Rafael Fiziev who is just uber talented and shocked me with his performance. I did not think he was going to do that to RDA. In fact, I thought the opposite was going to happen. So this guy is for real. This guy, it can be an elite fighter. He's on his way. And that Beneil Dariush fight is a necessary thing. And also for Beneil Dariush, a win over Rafael Fiziev. Oh my goodness, you're in title conversation now with this division and everything that's going on. So I think that's the fight to make. I agree with you. I would love that to happen. Honestly, though, I have no idea. They could book anybody. I am a big fan of Rafael Fiziev and just a phenomenal win. I did not see that coming. Phenomenal win for him. But yeah, I'm on the same page. Beneil Dariush, I think that's the way to go.
Well, rumor has it that Max Holloway might be making a move up to lightweight. So what about Holloway versus Fiziev?
Wow.
I know he doesn't get to immediately challenge for the title because that's Volkanovski gets to do that.
Yeah.
Holloway will probably have to work his way up a little bit, but 7's a great spot. I mean, start halfway through, I think it could be a good fight.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that a lot, actually. Again, Max has made overtures about moving up, very public overtures. Why not? I mean, if that can happen, I'm not going to say no to that. I'd bloody love to see that. I think if we're looking at the division, I mean, I can't even say this as stable as the division is right now because it's not stable and rankings don't count for anything anymore. I do like the Dariush fight. I think the problem, just on a quick note, Beneil Dariush, because again, like in life, he's getting run over pretty quickly on the podcast. The problem with Beneil Dariush is that he was slingshotted far too quickly at the rankings, far too soon for beating Tony Ferguson. The problem is, and you're absolutely correct, Jack, I'm really glad you said it, MMA fans or self-professed fans have got the shortest memory of any sport. You stay in the rankings for 6 months, people completely forget who you are. So if we're talking as the division sits this evening or this afternoon over there, I would be on the Beneil Dariush fight. I like that a lot. But if we've got overtures of Holloway moving up, why not make that fight? I agree with Hunter. I think the number 7, number 8 spot is a really nice landing pad for Max Holloway, and it would be a hell of a fight as well. Neither of them are going to wrestle, so let's have it.
I like that. I like that a lot. All right. Conspiracy time. Let me know what you guys think about this, okay? We stick with the plan. We got Dariush, Fiziev, right? That fight goes on, right? And then we do Holloway versus Justin Gaethje. And then Poirier, Michael Chandler.
What do we do? Okay. Actually, yeah, I like that. Oliveira versus Islam.
Yeah.
Next two.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in.
Then Volk versus the winner of that. And
now we just need the fighters to agree.
Tournament.
Yeah.
You know what? Why not? Why not?
Look, it is vacant, right? Anymore. It is vacant.
Yeah, it is. Let's just do pride rules for the vacant lightweight title and let's just make it happen. Why not? Yeah. I'd love to see that. The only thing is with Holloway is that Gaethje would butcher his legs. That would be the one thing. Max Holloway will end up being disabled if he fights Justin Gaethje because he won't be able to stand anymore. The guy, I mean, if you don't check a leg kick at 45, that's bad enough. But can you imagine Justin Gaethje slamming into your legs with every single attack? Eek. But I'd like to see it. I absolutely would like to see it. Then we have Charles Islam. What was the other one you mentioned? Poirier Chandler?
Yeah.
Yeah. Make it happen.
There's one problem about that whole scenario, Jack. And that is, where do you put Volkanovski?
Volkanovski gets a first round bye.
Volkanovski gets something before Holloway does, no matter what. I think. But, sure, first round bye. I like it.
We'll let the winner of Islam Charles goes and fights Volkanovski. That's what we'll do.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, the issue with the division now is Islam Makhachev has not. He's the only one who hasn't gotten a shot. If we're being fair, Chandler's gotten a shot. Gaethje's gotten 2 shots. So if we're being fair, Islam does have to get the next shot. He's been there too long not to give it to him. If Charles beats him, well, really, regardless of who beats the other, I think you give Volkanovski the shot after Makhachev. If you're coming up as we said in the last episode, actually, if you're coming up as the greatest featherweight of all time, you get a title shot. That's just the way it works. So if we're planning the whole thing out, I say you make Oliveira Makachev, and whoever wins that, you give them Volkanovski.
Yeah, I like it a lot. Well, look, UFC's listening. Everybody's listening. Habib's listening. You got to make it happen. Great podcast, guys. Thank you all so much for listening. Make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube. You can listen to us everywhere, literally everywhere, including iTunes and Spotify. Make sure to follow us on Instagram at MMA.island and check out our website, MMAisland.net. Again, everyone, thank you so much for listening and great podcast, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.